The 8th Nigeria Family Planning Conference will be held in Abuja from December 2nd to 6th of this year, bringing together key stakeholders to discuss critical issues surrounding family planning in the country. Organized by the Association for the Advancement of Family Planning in collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Health and other partners, the conference aims to address the multifaceted challenges facing the country's family planning initiatives. Since its inception in 2010, the NFPC has served as a key platform for stakeholders to exchange ideas and strategize on advancing family planning across Nigeria. This year's conference takes on added significance due to the country's economic difficulties, focusing on how family planning can alleviate the financial strain faced by households, reduce food insecurity, and improve access to essential health services. The conference will address barriers to effective service delivery, particularly in undeserved regions, and advocate for increased investment in healthcare infrastructure, workforce development, and the supply chain for contraceptives. Chairman, Management Committee, Association for the Advancement of Family Planning, and Chair, Local Organizing Committee, 8th Family Planning Conference, Dr. Ejike now joins us for more about the 2024 Family Planning Week. It's good to have you with us, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
Very good.
And good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Just before we get into the nitty-gritty of this conference, let's do a general assessment. Where is family planning, the concept, in Nigeria at the moment? Is there enough awareness? And what are your thoughts over time? How has it been handled, the issue of family planning?
Yeah, thank you very much. I would say family planning has been a very, should I say, underserved area of our healthcare system over time. And then usually when you want to assess something, you use some proxy indicators if you do not do a full blast assessment. Let me give you an example. For almost 10 to 15 years, the contraceptive prevalence rate of Nigeria was at 10, and then it marginally increased to 12. The snippets coming from the NDHS says that it is now 15, so there's a marginal increase of about 3%. So that means for every 100 women, only 15% of them are using modern methods of contraception. Our Association for the Advancement of Family Planning, a few of us years ago in 2010 came together and then formed what we call the Family Action Group. And what had happened at that time, Family Planning Action Group. At that time, it was so embarrassing that all the investments that have been made in the country, that the needle was not shifting. And we felt there was something we needed to do urgently. About 6 of us that we are country directors of international organizations in women's health and women's rights areas. So we came together and formed that group. I eventually metamorphosed into the Association for the Advancement of Family Planning. Our main goal at that time was to encourage the Nigerian government to put some money as a counterpart fund support for donors who have been giving us our resources for family planning. Also, the second plank of it was to also encourage government to make family planning services free in public sites. We successfully advocated for that in 2012. For the first time in the history of this country, Nigeria was able to approve $3 million for family planning counterpart fund based on what the donors were giving to us. And UNFPA was the organization that was helping us manage that because they have been the ones bringing in commodities for us, using economics upscale to get the best fit for our resources. But then, between then and now, the release of that $3 million has been a staccato kind of thing. In the last administration, the immediate past Minister of Health and Federal Minister of Health, there was no release for almost 3 years. And then it's just now that with the new minister, we have been able to release $4 million for that counterpart support because the former Minister of Health, Professor Ejike, was so wonderful. He actually increased that counterpart support from $3 million to $4 million. But when he left, no money was actually released. But luckily, Professor Pathy has been able to release the $4 million for our counterpart support. And then is going to release additional 2 billion naira for family planning commodities. So the other thing that is going on is that the unmet need of family plan. That means these are women who say, I want to use family planning, but they're not getting the services. Before the new NDHS came, the last one was in 5 years ago, it showed that 19% of women who wanted to use family planning services weren't getting those services. It has actually increased to 21% now. So 2 things here. One, it means that the demand generation the government is doing and all major international development partners in Nigeria, supported by donors, are doing, is yielding some measure of results, meaning the demand for family planning is increasing. But the uptake is not increasing as we would want it to be. And that's why the family planning conversation that we have every 2 years, we bring attention to it. And this year, the sector-wide approach, which has been introduced as a strategy by the new Minister of Health, wants to pool resources and strategically align them for effective use, so there won't be a siloed approach to programming. We appraise that, and we also applaud it. But however, we also, in order to make sure that we are aligning, we kind of ring-fenced what we're doing within that approach. And that's why this year's family planning, the major theme says sustaining commitments for family planning within the Nigerian health sector renewal investment initiative and advancing progress towards achieving FP 2030 goals. We had told the global partnership, FP 2030, that by 2030, Nigeria will increase her CPR as at that time from 12% to 27%. We have barely 6 years to go. So that means between now and 2030, we should increase our CPR by a minimum of 30 minus 15. That's another 15%. Sorry, not 15%, about 12%. So it's not going to be an easy ride. It's going to be, if we want to do that, then we'll have to robustly do something.
And by CPR, you mean?
Contraceptive prevalence rates.
All right.
That means the number of women per 100 that are using family planning services, modern methods.
All right. It's interesting to know that you've been doing this Nigeria Family Planning Conference for 8, you've done it for 8 sessions now. And this is the 8th one.
This is the 8th one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We'd like you for 7, yeah, this is the 8th one. We'd like to know what's the significance, what's different about this particular one, and how do you hope to address some of the challenges that you just talked about, that you've identified, especially in adopting the modern family planning techniques?
Yes, like I said initially, there's a new kid on the block, we'll say. The new minister says he wants to align resources and make sure that there is collaboration, coordination, and proper accountability use of resources for health services, including family planning. And so that's why our theme, major theme is on it. And one of our sub-themes is actually the strategy of swap. Now, the second thing is that we are also drawing attention that Nigeria is at a crossroads. The youthful population that we have now, it could be a blessing or it could be doom. If we look at what is it that causes, when you say a country is in a population crisis, what are the 3 things you see? One is the youthful bulge. 75% of our population is under the age of 34. And that means that we have a highly dependent population. About 85% of population is dependent on the other 15%. So this means we need to urgently do something to convert this our youthful population that would drive positive progress for the country. And there are 5 deliberate things any country that has this kind of youthful population must do. And that is, the second thing is that you must improve your health services. Because one of the things that also drive population growth is when a woman knows that she's going to have 10 children, only maybe 4 or 5 or 3 of them will survive. So she needs to keep having children because she doesn't know how many will survive. So if you improve the healthcare system, then women will know that if they have 2, those 2 will survive. So they won't go procreating. The third one is we already have a youthful bulge. So what do? We must make sure that they are employed, because most of the youth we have now are largely unemployable and largely unemployed. Nigeria took over from India a few years ago as the country that has the highest number of out-of-school children. We also took over from India as the country with the highest number of multidimensionally poor people. These are snippets to show that we're not managing our population properly. So we must invest appropriate, accessible, and relevant education to make sure that these youths are properly trained. When you do that, they'll have capacity to produce, and they have capacity to be properly employed. Then the fourth thing that we need to do is to do ease of doing business. So government must put things in place that will make it easy for those young people to do their jobs, hire themselves, or be hired. And then, of course, with that, we'll have a workforce that will attract foreign direct investments. And then the final thing is that we must also make sure that this country is a country where there is equity, justice, fair play, and that every citizen feels proud that is a citizen of the country. And you know, that fifth one is one that brings in what we call the intangible wealth of nations. That is huge. Japan doesn't have any mineral in their soil, but they have one of the highest intangible wealth of nations. If you look at the Nordic countries of Europe, their intangible wealth of nations goes up to about $900 and something thousand a year per capita. Nigeria is just about $2,600 and something. So when we do all that, and it's a generational thing. It's not one government goes, another one government starts another thing. You have to plan a deliberate policy that will drive this for 20 years. It's a generational thing. If we do this, Nigeria will be one of the best countries anybody can live in. We will now turn our youth to a country, a youth that will produce so much for this country that everybody will be proud of the country. If we don't do this, we're already seeing the snippets of doom. There is insecurity everywhere. Remember, it started with the OPC, the Yoruba nation formed the OPC to protect themselves from crisis. From OPC, we had the restiveness in the Niger Delta. From there, we had Boko Haram, Bakassi to take care of kidnapping in the southeast. From there, we had a religious crisis on the plateau. And then from there, we had Boko Haram in the northeast. Now, banditry in the northwest and all over the country. So this our conference, which will start on the 2nd, with two pre-conferences. One is the Women's Conference. Right. You know, women are the people that are taking services as we speak now. And then the other two, interfaith and youth. So, and the main conference starts on the 4th, 5th, and 6th. Global leaders in the world in health are all coming for this conference because they see an opportunity to support Nigeria. Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, FCDO, UNFPA, USAID, all major global partners. The International Conference on Family Planning is also coming to be able to collaborate with Nigeria because they are going to have their own in Colombia next year.
Yes, very good. So, we'd like to thank you and wish you all the best in the 8th Nigeria Family Planning Conference, which you just highlighted and given us all the details. Dr. Ejike Oji, Chairman, Management Committee Association for Advancement of Family Planning. We'd like to thank you for your thoughts on those issues. Good to have you with us.